Hello, it's Gordon here. Hopefully it's well with you. And this Facebook Live I've called Olympic Level Work, because the Olympics in London 2012 opened today, the 27th of July. It was the opening ceremony, which started at 2012, 12 minutes past 8. And my brother was in the opening ceremony. So I got to see it. I got to go. Well, I didn't actually go to the opening ceremony. I went to the tech rehearsal, which is like, you know, you dress rehearsal. And it was just amazing. I will post a photo under this video once I've posted this video of the bit of the show that my brother was in. And it was the NHS segment. And he will correct me, I'm sure, but as far as I'm aware, everyone in that section was, all the doctors and nurses were employed in and by the NHS. So they weren't necessarily doctors and nurses, but they were either doctors and nurses or employed doing other things in the NHS in a capacity. So he was invited to take part in the show. And I remember he told me about it at the time and said, well, why didn't I? Obviously, I've got no connection with the NHS myself, but he said I could apply for other things in the show. And I remember at the time looking at the details and thinking they talked about the rehearsal times and the rehearsal periods and the commitment needed. And at the time, I wasn't able to make that commitment. And also at the time, I was thinking, opening ceremony, I'm not a big fan of opening ceremonies. I'm not sure I can be asked. I'm not sure I'm going to bother. I didn't bother. But he did bother, because he has always loved his performing. He still does. He's still doing some great things. He's over in Sweden at the moment. He's taking part in lots of things over in Sweden. But I'm talking about 2012. And I remember him doing all the rehearsals. He had to go to, I think it was 3 auditions just to get the part in the show. And then he had to go through all these rehearsals. And I remember him posting at the time that it was a pain in the neck for him to have to make the time and do all the travelling and the expense of it. To do all these, because you couldn't just say, yeah, I'm going to do it and turn up to some of them. If you didn't turn up to them, you weren't going to be in the show. It was a proper operation, clearly, because there were thousands of people involved. And that's one of the points I'm making in this video. The show, which was regarded by the critics as being spectacular, because there were concerns about the show. Because 2012 obviously was following on from 2008 Olympics in China. And China threw a lot of money and a lot of organisation, which their state-controlled country can do. So a lot of money, time, resources thrown at the 28 Olympics in China. And particularly the opening ceremony was spectacular. It was. And it was thought at the time, well, they've set the bar that no one else can match. And London, well, London is certainly not going to be able to match it. But they appointed Danny Boyle as the director of the show and the sort of creator of the show. And it was done in a way that featured a lot of British culture, past, present, and a lot of British humour throughout the ceremony. So it was regarded as a huge, roaring success. And I knew at the time, when I watched the dress rehearsal, in fact, I can feel the hairs on the back of my neck rising just thinking about it. The atmosphere then, it was electric. And it was clear that the whole 2012 Olympics was going to be spectacular. So the opening ceremony sort of laid down a marker. Had the opening ceremony fallen flat or been a damp squib, that feeling would have carried on possibly through to the rest of the Olympics, but it didn't, because it was such a spectacular success. don't get me started on the fact, by the way, that when they opened the Olympics, 27th of July, this day back in 2012, the sport had already started. Spoken about this before, it drives me up the wall. The women's footballers had already started, and some of the archery competitions had already started. Oh, blah, 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 this gets me annoyed. I've spoken about this before as well. It's to do with timing, that they want the ceremony to start on a certain time and finish on a certain time. But some sports have to have a certain amount of time between games, recovery time, that the only way they could get it into the scheduling was to start some of the sport before the opening ceremony. Cobblers, I'm not having it. I do not accept that. I never have accepted it. I don't think it's fair on the competitors that have to start their Olympic experience, and some of them were already knocked out. So some of them were already out of the Olympics before the opening ceremony and the Queen declaring it open. That's not right, is it? Come on, Olympics, sort it out. I told you not to get me started on that. Why did you have to start me off on that? Anyway, back to my brother being in the ceremony. Yes, so his part was one of they had a load of beds going round. Oh, how can I describe it? Yeah, they had a lot of beds going around the stadium, being pushed by doctors and nurses with little kids on the beds. And my brother was one of the doctors in the opening ceremony. That's probably the best way of describing it. As I say, I'll post a picture below this video once I've posted the video. And remember, he was wasn't sure whether he was going to do it or not, whether he was going to apply, and bemoaned the fact that the rehearsals and getting to the rehearsals was a bit of a pain in the neck. But 7 years later, and ever since, but certainly 7 years later, he says it was one of the best experiences of his life. Now, my brother's older than me. He's older than me. So he's got a lot more experiences than I've had. But he says that being in the Olympic opening ceremony was one of the best experiences of his whole life. Fantastic. And I say I can sense why, because I went to the dress rehearsal, and I can feel the hairs on the back of my neck because of the atmosphere. And something my brother is very good at, and always has been, is he makes these sort of lifelong connections and lifelong friends in real life, wherever he goes, because he's very good, dare I say it, at inviting himself into, or implanting himself into other people's social circles. So he invites himself along to a lot of people's things, and he then invites all these other people to his things. He's a real social gatherer. And he loves it. I'm tempted to say I'm very jealous, and always have been, of the way he does that, because I'm not very good at doing that at all. That is not one of my strong points in the real world with real people, because he is spectacularly good at that. So yeah, I thought I'd mention it, because he's posted on his Facebook wall that he says people are probably tired of him going on about it. And I said, actually, I don't think anyone is tired about you going on about it, because surely one of the things Facebook is for, if Facebook is for anything, is spreading messages of joy and messages of passion and messages of connection. If Facebook isn't about that, what is Facebook good for? Facebook's good for a lot of things, by the way, but that is what Facebook is wonderful for, marvellous for. So yes, he should keep banging on about it for the next 7 years, and the next 7 years after that too. So when it comes to Olympic level work, what did you watch any of the 2012 Olympics? Think back to 7 years ago. What were you doing? Did you just think, yeah, Olympics, or did you get stuck in to the whole London 2012 thing? And when it comes to the areas of your life, health, wealth, career, relationships or lifestyle, what Olympic level work could you apply? So what I mean by that is there a goal in any or all of those 5 key life areas that you're not pursuing, that you're not following, that you're not taking action towards because of the level of work involved? Are you being put off by that level of work? And then the question is, well, should you be? Or should you take on the work because it is work that is moving on a pathway and on a journey towards something that means something to you? Because if you set the goal and it means something to you, why wouldn't you put in the work? Yes, the work might be a pain in the neck along the process, but that's the case in life. Whether we're on a path of intention or on a path of random consequence, life is still going to be a pain in the neck. So why not do it on a path of intention? Because when you get to that goal or accomplishment or achievement, could it be like my brother with the Olympic Opening Ceremony? You could look back in years and years and years to come and say that was one of the best experiences of your life. Interesting question, isn't it? And well worth a few minutes of your time to ponder. And then, dare I say, you could take up the idea and actually run with it and start taking action towards something in any or all of those 5 key areas that has meaning and that might need, yes, Olympic level work. So I hope you enjoy that message. Let me know what you think. I'm off to hunt down that photo of my brother in the Olympic ceremony and I'll post it below this video. Signing off for now, wishing you as ever health and happiness. I'll speak to you again soon.